What's going on, guys? This is Jimmy.
Hey, this is Rachel coming to you from a remote spot.
From a remote spot?
Yeah, actually, this is honestly, very few people are allowed in here. This is the first time he's probably going to spend such a long time in here. This is Rachel's retreat. But we figured we would shoot down here, just trying to keep from having the technical issues we've had in the past.
Yeah. Guys, we thank you all so much for joining us on Relationship Real Talk. Look, we want to talk about something that everybody's talking about. And we're going to talk about that COVID-19, the lock-in.
Have mercy. And we want you to tune in. Have your friends tune in. We want you to share. We want you to comment. We want you to like. Please tell us what city you're representing from. We'd love to hear from you. We want to feel as if you are right here with us.
Yes.
Right?
And look, if you getting a good sound and all that good stuff from us now, please give us some thumbs up so we'll know that we are actually being heard. And we would truly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So look, what is this COVID-19, the lock-in, Rachel? What are we talking about today?
I think that here's what's interesting about what we're talking about. Not a single person doesn't know what we're talking about. Whether you are on Facebook, not on Facebook, not just in the state of Georgia, not just in the United States, but in the world. We are all on lockdown and we are locked in. Now, some of us are not quite locked in. We like to step out and visit, but you just got to be so careful because you just never know. It's serious. You got to be safe. So we do want to say that. The things that we talk about today are on the backdrop of make sure whatever you do, you're following the guidelines of keeping safe as far as your health is concerned.
And let's just be clear. We're not going to give you guys any advice on this COVID-19 thing. We're not medical professionals. That's not the perspective that we're coming from. We're actually coming from the perspective of now that we are in the midst of this COVID-19 lock-in or quarantine, what do you do as a couple?
Right. Like,
how do you make this thing work? You know what I mean?
Because here's the reality. You can be married or living together or whatever the case may be, and you go to work, they go to work. Really, most of your wake hours might be away from the house.
Right.
And so together, like when you're apart, you're not necessarily interacting with one another, maybe digitally, but actually day in, day out, breakfast, lunch, dinner, throughout the whole day, you're having to interact with one another and kind of, I guess, learn each other all over again in a different way.
Right.
So the purpose of what we're going to talk about today, like my husband mentioned, is not so much the health part of it, although we want you to stay healthy, but the health part of it as it relates to the health of your marriage and nurturing your marriage, because now comes the tough part of some of those issues that you had that you were able to avoid and stay away from the house. Right. You have to deal with it. You're locked in. You're right there. And some of you, that space is a very small space, whether it be in your room or even in the home. Some of you may be tucked away in separate rooms for all we know. But we just want to be able to share some things on how to make this time a reflective time, a healthy time, a time that by the time we come out of it, because we will come out of it. By the time we come out of it, we're better. We're better as people. We're better in our relationships.
Amen. That is our focus today. Literally, how can we become better and stronger throughout this process of this COVID-19, the lock-in or the quarantine? And so we really just thought it would be very appropriate to talk to you all about 3 tips to nurture your relationship during a crisis. There are, 3 things you can do to nurture your relationship during a crisis. Now, and the first thing that, of course, I believe during any crisis, the first tip that we all need to take heed to is keeping calm. Don't panic. You know what I mean?
Let me tell you.
Don't panic. Don't let this stress you out.
Because I mean, and we'll talk about this. It's something you can't control.
Exactly.
And here's what I realized. I have not been in a panic. I have not been in a mode of hysteria. But I remember Tuesday morning when I went to Sam's to get some, just a couple of things we still needed. The energy of other people can be projected onto you even.
Right.
Even like you're completely calm, you're completely okay. But, people are almost running you over with their cart and snatching up. I was at Sam's, they were just snatching stuff off it was a whole line backed up. And so even though that's about, them having what they need, it still can produce anxiety within the individual that can be projected on to your spouse, your people in your family. So that whole keeping calm thing is a huge piece.
It is. It really is. So let me ask you all this. What are you doing as a couple to keep the peace in your home? Because I know once you're, like Rachel said earlier in the opening, we're not accustomed to being around each other all day, every single day, unless we both work from home. And that's not our scenario, and that's not the average American scenario. Right. So what are you all doing to sort of keep the peace, at home while you're in this lock-in? What are you doing?
And to navigate things a little bit more easily. So we want you to put in the comments, answer this question. What are some of the things that you do as a couple individually to keep the peace in your home, to keep the peace within your relationship, so that as you navigate through this difficult time, you come out better on the other side of it.
Right. So, one of the first tips under the keeping calm, we make no qualms about it. We are a faith-based ministry. We're going to apply godly principles. And one of the first things that Rachel and I said that all people should implement is just pray for peace and direction.
Yes.
Pray for that sense of calm. Pray for that lack of worry,
Right.
And I think that's under keeping calm. The first thing, we're saying is pray, ask God to give you a sense of peace.
And let me just quote this for a second. It's like that quote that says, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief.
Right.
We're humans. Like, even though we know, like, God has seen us through things, we've been through things before and got on the other side of it. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when you're smack dab in the middle of it, it's so hard. You can't, how they say, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Right.
And so what I always say is, pray even sometimes when you feel like you just don't know.
Right.
And God knows. He already knows how we're feeling. But there's something about putting it out there mm-hmm. and allowing him to give you that peace in the midst of whatever's going on outside of you. And direction. Where do we go from here?
Right.
Because here is the thing. As a couple, many of you, it's just you two. But with some of you, it's you two and children.
Right.
And we all know children, they glean off of our energy.
They sure do.
As an educator, the minute this stuff started coming out, I started talking to my students. Like, I started reading as much as I can about the facts, mm-hmm. trying to filter through, facts to just hysteria, and just started having a conversation, because what was happening is, it wasn't until I asked them, how y'all doing? Are you, and they were like, I'm anxious. I'm scared about, being home all that time, and depression. Things that in the past, back in the day, you home for the summer, mama's gone, daddy's gone, and you just got, you're not going anywhere, and you're right. Cool. But we live in a different day and time where people are constantly stimulated. So just imagine that's additional pressure on the relationship
right.
of, okay, how do I maintain my peace? And then let's say your spouse is not at peace. How am I there for them? And then let's say your children are not okay, or you're trying to maintain that. There's a lot of moving parts.
Right.
As it relates to that.
Well, look, I'm seeing that we get some people joining us. Hey, Chrissy, what's going on, cousin? You doing all right? Look, we thank you so much for joining us. Again, we're talking about this COVID-19, the lock-in. What do you do with your significant other to make this lock-in beneficial?
And
we discussed that there are 3 tips 3 tips to nurture your relationship during a crisis. And we said the first one, of course, is keep calm. And under that, how do we keep calm? We pray and ask for peace and direction. And then secondly, we focus on what we can control. I cannot control what everybody else is doing. I cannot control how this thing is spreading throughout the world. But what I can control is what we're doing on the inside of our household and in our family.
Let me tell you.
So it is my job, it behooves me as the man of the house to make sure that in the midst of this chaos that I have no control over, that my wife and my kids are still at peace, that she still realizes that I love her. She still realizes that in the midst of this chaos, he's still thinking about me. And so those are the things that we need to focus on when we're talking about keeping calm. Just praying and asking for peace, focusing on the things that you can control, and avoid making comparisons.
Yes. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. I see Gary's joining us.
Yes.
Dion is joining us. Do us a favor, guys. Go ahead and put your city where you're watching us from. We would love to know where you're watching us from. Some of you, we already know where you live, but we want the people to know where you're watching from.
Family, hey, Lynn.
Family, blood family, and extended family.
Yeah.
But you bring up something, when we were talking about this control, there's a whole nother aspect to that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on what you can control.
Right.
Because those of us who are control freaks,
mm-hmm.
watch out now, people. Those of us who are used to orchestrating every part of our lives and everything's got to be this. Don't get me wrong. I am misorganization. I love things a certain way. However, I've learned that, and I think that's why I had peace when all this came out, because I always feel like, God, I just want to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay.
And so sometimes my own fears or hesitations or trepidations come from, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing, God, before you come in and intervene?
Right.
But in a situation like this, we didn't cause it.
Right.
It is something that is happening to our world.
Right.
And so in those kind of situations, that's when I cling more closely to my beliefs,
mm-hmm.
because that's all I got.
Right.
That's all I got. And here's the thing. We were listening to Eric Thomas. Shout out to Eric, hip hop preacher on APOC, A Place of Change, Saturday. And he brought up such a great point. And he was like, this is the time to, so many times people say, I want to do this, I want to do that. We talk about the things we want to do,
mm-hmm.
but then we struggle with finding the time to do them. Well, guess what, guys? Now is the time.
Right.
Have you ever thought of this from a different perspective?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe, just maybe, God is allowing me in this, like just put yourself in this situation, aside from the whole world going through this. Maybe he's allowing me to use this time right now to do whatever this thing is. I know the first thing that came to my mind when I heard that we were going home, I said, oh Lord, thank you, Jesus. You knew I needed some rest. Now, would I have preferred this not to be happening? Of course, I would not want that to happen. I don't want people dying. But because this is the situation we're in and we have no control over it, how can you, as Eric said, how can you rise to the occasion? And what I've learned is what you feed grows, what you starve dies.
Right.
So if you feed the hysteria, if you feed the lack of control, that's what's going to seem bigger and larger than life. But if you feed the positive fruits that can come out of this time, that is what's going to grow. And then when this is all said and done, and we're all coming out from our houses with, our hair all long and beards not cut and eyebrows need doing, we are coming out with something great, mm-hmm. because we've been working in that time.
And so the thing that we really want to focus on as relationship consultants is, what are you doing to enhance your relationship during this time? I know for us, yesterday we had been locked in for several days. And so we were like, you know what, let's just go ride our bikes. And we got out and just rode around a campus.
Yeah, the park was closed.
Right, parks were closed. So we just decided to ride our bikes around this campus. And it was such a beautiful day. The weather was perfect. And it gave us a chance to not focus on being confined,
locked in.
Right.
I mean, just the fresh air,
Mm-hmm.
the newness of it all. Like, we knocked out so many things because we were doing it together,
Mm-hmm.
and we were doing it with the kids, and it was just different things to talk about. I really just enjoyed not having that sense of, oh my goodness, I got to get ready for this. I got to get ready for that. I got this going on. I got that going on. That doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. You know, we're still teaching from home, but it just was not the same.
Right.
It just was not the same. And so what we found is we decided on Friday night, we were listening to some friends of ours in this ministry, Shannon and Shirley, on Marriage Inc. They were talking about, at the end of the conversation, you know, everything had closed. They were like, so what are you going to do for your spouse to satisfy their love language
during this
lock-in?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean you're not supposed to be doing it when there's not a lock-in or quarantine situation, but what are you going to be intentional about for your spouse? And he knew my love language was acts of service, so he was like, you know what, I'm gonna cook her breakfast, and took it a step further, breakfast in bed. So to wake up to, wow, breakfast is made, tension's already down. For him, I had already been talking about this. I was like, babe, I think I want to go bike riding. You know, the weather had been cold. We had gotten the bikes, you know, this past summer. So it was like, let's go bike riding. And it ended up just being a wonderful day, a stress-free day, and a day that we really felt, even though we rode the bikes, we still felt rested.
Right. It was relaxing.
It was relaxing. Yeah. And we were able to pour into one another. You know, some of you may have seen on Facebook, you know, the food that he cooks, or that evening I was ready to come home and cook my family some dinner. You know, you may have seen the salmon dinner I cooked, which was delicious. But had we not been intentional about that, we would have just been laying around looking at our devices. And don't get me wrong, the rest is nice. Being able to catch up on things is nice, but it just was a nice welcome break. And we didn't have to worry about comparing.
Right.
Which was the third thing we had under keeping calm. When you compare yourself to the world, to what other people are doing, or wait a minute, maybe I'm not hyped enough. Maybe we're not, maybe we're too calm.
Right.
Are we prepared? Do we have what we need? And it's like, don't compare. Mm-hmm. You have the same information that everybody else has. Govern yourselves accordingly, mm-hmm. so that you don't have to feel the pressure that comes with comparison.
Right. And don't put yourself under unnecessary stress. So the first tip again is keep calm. Under keeping calm, pray for peace and direction. Focus on what you can control and avoid making comparisons. Don't put yourself in other people's scenarios. Don't even, or you know, for those of us who love social media, we have a tendency of going to social media, looking at other people's lives going, well, you know what, they did so-and-so, why we can't do. No, make your own way. Right. Do that thing that is significant and to you and your significant other. Right. Don't try to pattern your stuff after everybody else. Be unique in your own experience.
They could do that. And there's nothing wrong with getting ideas from social media.
Right.
That is nice, but not to the point where it becomes
pressure
and it becomes an issue.
Right.
Because the Joneses are doing this, that, and the third.
Exactly.
You really just want to, because everybody has to figure out what works for them. And so we want to remind our viewers, the question we put out there is, what are you guys doing as a couple to keep the peace? And let's say you're not in a couple situation, but you found a way that's healthy to keep the peace just in your home that could be applied to a relationship situation. What are you doing? And don't forget to tell us where you're coming from. But we'd like to say hey to
Dolores is on here.
D-Lo.
And Miss Camille. Hey, Miss Camille Scott, how are you? We have
Tonda.
Antonio Crew.
Oh, I didn't see him.
Yeah, he's in McDonough. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
one person following instructions. I like that.
The rest of y'all, come on, rep your city now, unless you're ashamed of your city.
Dolores.
Yes, I went to school with Tonda Cooks at the mighty Miami Southridge Senior High. Regina Nixon, Dolores' sis, and Barbara James. All right, thank you so much for joining us, guys.
BJ.
What are you doing to keep the peace in your home? And when we say peace, it could be internal peace as well as you go through this crisis.
And so what's the second tip?
The second tip. The second thing you need to do
under any crisis situation,
to nurture your relationships is develop a plan.
Right.
All right. So now when we say develop a plan, the question we're going to ask you guys, we want to put it out there. What are you doing to nurture your relationship during this crisis? Like action plan, specific. We know what the goal is, which is to enrich your relationship. But what does that actually look like? All right. So once you find that, go ahead and put that in the comment. Don't forget to share, like on this page. Now, the first thing we say you should do is prioritize your relationship. Babe, what does that look like?
Well, prioritizing your relationship, this is the chance, like we mentioned earlier, for those of us who work every day, sometimes we focus so much on work, we focus so much on our children, we focus so much on our extracurricular activities, any groups we're in, church activities, so forth and so on. And in a lot of cases, our spouses get put on the back burner, right?
That's right.
And so now that we're locked in with each other and we have no excuse.
Have mercy.
We have no excuse now.
Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide.
You have nowhere to go. You have no events that you're going to be attending. What are you intentional about as it relates to putting your spouse first? Now can you say, babe, you know what? I don't have an excuse. I don't have an excuse to make you first now, you know?
Wow.
And so prioritizing your relationship, both of you all, both male and female, should be saying to, you know, to themselves,
That's
you know
right.
what can I do to make sure that my significant other know that they're the most important person to me? And like Rachel said, this is not just isolated to this lock-in. Our hope and desire is that this will carry on beyond this lock-in.
That's right. And let me say this, babe, we got people viewing us from out of the country.
Where?
We got Chanel Yubo. She's in Lagos, Nigeria.
Oh,
supporting us. What's up, girl?
Chanel?
Nothing but love for you. Barbara is in Ohio. We've got Camille is in Hot Springs, Arkansas. So that's where you moved to. All right. And of
Gary
course,
is in Alabama.
Huntsville, Alabama. He said hee-haw. And you know, your fam is from Monroe, Louisiana.
Yes, sir.
Marissa didn't put it on there, but we still put it out there.
What's up, Tanisha?
Hopefully they don't come looking for you.
Donna Reed. What's up, Miss Reed, newlywed?
I got to put this bookcase together. Well, you listen while you're putting the bookcase together. But I want to say this, something about prioritizing your relationship. And here's what's really sad during this time is there are some relationships that literally were on the brink already. It could be, unfortunately, some that are abusive and they're stuck with this person, whether it be emotionally, physically, mentally. Some were they're just not getting along.
Right.
There's conflict on every end. We talked about resolving conflict on last week, but just imagine taking that situation into a heightened situation, like a crisis like this. And so I think prioritizing your relationship, like if there ever was a time that you needed to have a serious look at yourself in the mirror and analyze yourself and think about your relationship, like, suppose something was to happen to my spouse.
Right.
You know, would I be okay with the way things are right now? Or do all the things that we were conflicted about, was that worth the impending that's taking place at this time?
Right.
And so you really want to sit down and think about putting whatever it is to the side during this time. Now, when I say during this time, it doesn't mean that it stops after this time.
Right.
But this could be a perfect opportunity to have that serious, critical conversation. Babe, I know we haven't been getting along. Babe, I know you can't stand me. I feel like I can't stand you. But we have got to not just survive, but we've got to thrive. Right. Because life is too short.
Exactly. Because, and you know, I'm going to just say this, you know, I know for me, looking at this on a global level, the deaths that are just there's countless all over the world.
That's right.
If that cannot make you revisit your thought process on
what's important,
how valuable someone is to you, I don't know what it would take. You know what I mean?
You're right.
And don't get me wrong, I am not negating the serious issues that people could be dealing with in the context of their relationship. And I mean, I know people will name a whole bunch of stuff, but let me just say this, and I want to look directly in the camera when I say this.
Go for it.
I'm challenging you to become more mature than you've ever been now. Take the time to first self-assess. Look at yourself and say, okay, how have I played into this negative outcome in our relationship? What have I brought to the table that also added fuel to this, this tumultuous relationship?
That's right.
If you start with you first, what you will find is you're less judgmental toward them because you recognize, oh, wow, man, I did play a role in some of this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if both of you all do that, I promise you, you'll be able to come to the table and revisit some things and say, hey, I apologize. It is, this was my fault. And you all can start now while you have the time. You have time now to really just say, you know what, babe, let's start over.
Right. And if you cannot come to the table because there's just way too much conflict, here's the wonderful thing. So many people talk about how bad technology is.
Right.
I don't believe technology is inherently good or bad. It's all in how you use it.
That's right.
You can empower yourselves by reaching out. There are so many counselors and people, coaches who will remotely be that mediator for you.
Yes.
And some of you might say, well, we don't have the money for that. You might have a trusted friend who has sound values. They share your same core beliefs that you trust, that can be an unbiased party and just kind of help you out. Because my question is always, do you feel as if your relationship is worth saving?
Right.
That question is huge. Because if you really, I'm not talking about when you're in your feelings or when you're mad. If I'm mad at him, I'm like, shoot, I don't want to look at him for the next week or so. Yeah. That sounds about right.
Yep, about right.
Okay. And I'm not, if I just went with that, then, nothing's ever going to get fixed. And I'll never forget Pastor James Doggett. He used to always say, here are the vicissitudes of life. We have our ups and we have our downs. And for many, I would say many people would look at this as a down, right? Although we're trying to find our balance. But in those vicissitudes of life, you should never make major decisions at the high or the low.
Right.
Because sometimes you're so excited that you jump into something you ain't had no business jumping into.
Right.
Like a relationship that you're trying to deal with now or get rid of or what have you, right? Or you make it at your lows because you've been comparing. You feel like you have a perspective of what you thought the relationship was going to look like. And you might have some unrealistic expectations, or you may have had realistic expectations. But the bottom line is, make that decision in the middle. When you have found, everybody knows when they are stable emotionally. And make a clear, conscious, and for those of you that are God believing or your higher power, you got to tap into that and see what direction you need to go. Does what's happening go against your core values?
And I want to speak to something else you said earlier. You said that, for those of you who will say, well, we don't have money for that. Okay, I will challenge you on this. Don't say I don't have money for that if you can find money for entertainment.
This is true.
Don't say you don't have money for that when you can find money for all the latest electronic gadgets. You gonna upgrade your iPhone regardless. You know what I'm saying?
You gonna get that Apple TV.
We got to get out of the habit of valuing things that are not really valuable.
And baby, it actually goes back to what you said under, we talked about keeping calm, developing a plan as it relates to nurturing your relationship. The first thing he mentioned under nurturing your relationship was prioritizing your relationship.
Right.
And we're all guilty of it. But sometimes, a lot of times, we put things that we put worth on things that shouldn't be first.
Right.
And we got to remember the order of operations. I got to quote Quest, what comes first? And if you're a Christian, that's God. Then your relationship. Then if you have children, your children. And so anytime that things goes out of order,
it's going to cause a problem.
You're not going to be able, right. It's going to be a problem. You're not going to be able to solve it.
Right.
Because you went out of order. So that prioritizing your relationship, you might have to sacrifice something that you really like.
Which is a preference.
For the person that you say you really love.
Wow.
I'll say that again. Sometimes you might have to sacrifice the thing you really like strongly for the person you say you really love. And I'm not even going to sit here and front and act like it's easy. I'm not going to act like, everybody is just going to be able to go into counseling and get this kind of feedback and everything is just hunky-dory. It literally is work. Jimmy and I do what we do because we feel like this is what God has called us to do because of our own experiences in past marriages and in our current marriage. It's not perfect, but we do have a core belief that we serve a perfect God and he has the answers. And when he doesn't get it right, or he feels like I don't get it right, we've got to have a way to come back to the table and have something that resets us. But we always say this and we're never afraid of it. We have a counselor. Why? Because we got to stay on top of our stuff because of what we do, the enemy attacks us even more.
Right.
When I tell y'all, the mere fact that we're down here in my retreat, by the way, this is usually just for me, but that's a whole nother story. We're trying to make sure we've been having streaming issues. So the connection was much better downstairs than upstairs. But that's how much the enemy was coming for us that we had to move locations.
Right.
Just to be able to come and bring you guys a message, especially a necessary message in this current climate.
All right. So again, we're talking about the 3 tips to nurture your relationship during a crisis. We talked about keeping calm, which means you pray for direction and for peace. Focus on what you can control. Avoid making comparisons. We also discussed number 2, which is develop a plan. And under developing a plan, we said prioritize your relationship. And then we talked about intentionality with love languages. I see my brother is on the line. Let's see here.
Yes, he asked the question.
Where is he?
You don't see him there? You can use my phone here.
Okay. Willie Harrison, what's up, Junior? He says, do you all only cater just to Christian or to the whole world of religion of people? Yes. Listen, here's the one thing I've learned. Principles transcend
all the religion,
colors and religion. These are principles. So yes, we cater to non-Christians. We cater to people that don't even believe in God. You can be an atheist. The principles will apply because the principles are for humanity. They're not just for people who claim to know God or who have a specific religion that they practice.
For example, like we gave the tip, pray for peace and direction. For some people, it depends on who are you praying to.
Right.
That you feel like you get your peace from. For some people, that prayer looks like meditation.
Right.
They simply just meditate to find their peace or exercise to find their peace. Whatever the case may be, you still need peace.
Right. Hey, babe, Jill's on the line. Rosalind is on the line. What's going on, guys?
What's going on? So yes, to answer your question,
yes,
it's not. Yes, this is a Christian ministry. However, the principles that we share, you replace for people who don't believe in Jesus Christ, and we're not ashamed to say we do. But whatever that higher power is that you tap into, that's what you should be tapping into during these difficult times.
Babe, my girl Maya, what's up, slacker?
He said, okay, great, because a lot of people right now are looking for that peace.
Right.
And you know what? I'm glad he said that, because for people who do not have something extrinsically outside of themselves, I've just always believed that when people believe in something greater than themselves, they tend to kind of understand the bigger picture,
right?
And you're able to find that peace.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing I would say, regardless of your religion. If you don't have a religion,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to find something healthy that will allow you to seek that peace that you're looking for, which means you have to study.
Well, not only that, go back
Mm-hmm.
to what you initially said.
Yeah.
You said to seek something outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Here's something that I have found to be true across the board, and I have had the opportunity to travel this world twice. And no matter what country I went to, no matter what religion they practice, when people thought about other people more than they thought about themselves,
that's right,
peace automatically came.
Have mercy.
You know, it is us who become selfish, you know, just concerned with ourselves, that struggle with peace.
Oh, baby. Can I interject something here?
Go ahead.
So what we're talking about, let me just sidebar this. Those of you who are trying to pull off every roll of toilet tissue off the shelves, those of you who are trying to take all the hand sanitizer
and Lysol,
while you are trying to protect yourself, you're not leaving anything for anybody else to try to protect themselves. So what that means is you become even more vulnerable because nobody else is protected but you. So, but you're exactly right. Once you start to kind of like Mahatma Gandhi, be the change that you want to see in this world. And here's the thing, I think we have to be so careful. Sometimes people get turned off by things because of the label that comes with it.
Right.
Like Christianity. But when you look at some basic principles of loving people and caring for people and thinking about others and treating others the way you want to be treated,
mm-hmm.
I can't think of one person who wants a decent, healthy life that wouldn't want to agree with that type of principle.
But what they're disagreeing with is not the principle. They're disagreeing with the people who don't carry out the principles.
That's right.
So us as Christians, when we become judgmental, people stray away from that.
It's the way we carry ourselves. But again,
I don't want to get on that soapbox. I see my man Robert Volcano. That's my man.
Oh, that's your man.
Wait, that's Jill. That's who that is.
That's Mrs. Volcano soon to be. That's Jill. That was for you, boo boo. I see Maya is on.
Rosalind Davis.
Jill
what's
said
going
facts.
on? And Raymond King.
Watch out now.
Man, he is the extraordinaire of making something common look spectacular.
Yes, our wedding for one.
Yeah.
But yes, we have Rosalind Davis, Tamara Ellis. What's up, girl?
Hey, Maya, please tell my girl I said hello. And you know who I'm talking about. Izzy.
What's that?
Her little granddaughter, Izzy.
Oh, her little granddaughter, Izzy.
That's my baby.
Yes,
but look, again, we are just trying to give you guys some tips and some tools to handle this lock-in with your significant other.
That's right.
So we're talking about developing a plan.
What was the first thing? So the first thing was we said keep calm, and the way you do that is by seeking peace. Whether you're praying for peace, meditating through that peace, not focusing on yourself, but focusing on how you can help other people. Focus on things that you are in control of, and don't make comparisons.
Right. And number 2, we talked about developing a plan. That's prioritizing your relationship.
What's most important?
What's most important? What has the most value? Not the thing that you like the most. That's just your preference.
Right.
But we have to learn how to live by principles.
Right.
What is most valuable?
Do we want to be together by the end of all of this?
Right.
And one of the things that we talked about it earlier in this broadcast is being intentional with love languages. Whether you believe it or not, we all have things that we respond to very well, and it fills our love bank. It makes a deposit into our love bank. And what is your love language?
Not being talked over while I'm talking. That's
what did I just do? You weren't finished?
No, I wasn't finished.
Last I checked, and Jill, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this. Not being talked over was not one of the 5. Let's see, we got quality time, physical touch, gift giving, acts of service, and words of affirmation. Yeah. So let's see. Did that include talking over? No, it did.
Well, we'll say words of affirmation as it relates to being considerate.
Right. And that wasn't one of yours, your top 2. But go ahead. My apologies.
But no, so under developing a plan, we did talk about prioritizing your relationship, and then we talked about intentionality with your love languages with your spouse, and then last under that one, We talked about established practices for the future. So right now, in this lock-in, we have an opportunity to maybe establish some things,
practices, traditions
that we have not done prior to this lock-in.
Because we said we didn't have enough time.
Right. So now what happens is we have the time to actually put those things into practice and then carry them beyond this lock-in.
That's right.
So that's what we're challenging you all to do when you're developing this plan. Not only are we going to talk about the things we're going to do while we're in the lock-in, but the things that's going to carry over well beyond this COVID-19 crisis.
Baby, you know what I'm doing right now?
What's that?
I'm rubbing my legs because I'm still remembering the fact that you threw me under the bus.
Man.
When you just said that I talked over you, I mean, everybody didn't have to know that. They probably picked up on that. But it just hit me like he just threw me under the bus. In the midst of this crisis, people, he threw me under the bus. So that should be one of the steps there. Do not throw your significant other under the bus. That's all
What's up, Tamara Ellis? Oh, Tamika. What's going on, cousin?
Let me tell you, let me tell y'all something. I love this man right here. But this very room in which we sit is Rachel's retreat. I had to create this. And women, this is just a sidebar. One of the practices that you can establish that I think works quite well for us is each of you having a place where you can retreat.
Mm-hmm. I do agree.
And then for such a time as this, come back together. But when I have had enough of him, or even when I just feel like I need to woos out and find my peace, Willie, I come to this place and I can't pick up the camera and show you, but there's some inspirational words behind me. There's just some aesthetics that just bring me peace. I have my candles. And so when I do that, it helps me recenter. You know, sometimes I'll have my devotion in here. And then, he goes upstairs to the loft and tinkers and does whatever he's going to do.
But it's not off limit to everybody else. They just come when they feel
Well, I mean, that's his choice.
No.
Baby, that was your choice to make it have an open door policy. Pause. I was very clear when I made this room. Okay? So, matter of fact, this is the most testosterone that has been in this room since its inception in September. Normally, he's at the door, he knocks. He has tried to invade this room a few times on the notion of so many different things. But I had to concede this go around because I'm like, the people need to hear our message. And we didn't have time for no mess up in Wi-Fi. But I digress. Thank you for the support. Willie said we're great.
My man Lazo.
Rosalind said, remain calm, Rachel. When I tell you, the Lord said he made it in the room. Y'all, what I said, we are in crisis. When we're in crisis, things happen very differently. As a matter of fact, when he started bringing all this equipment in here, y'all see me scratching my head. Whenever I start rubbing, for those of you who don't know this about me, my husband may not even know this, but when I start getting a little hot under my collar, I might start rubbing the back of my head, scratching my head a little bit. I was like, no, he didn't just come and bring all these lights and equipment up in here.
I know all your tics, woman.
And then I had to find my peace. And I said, you know what? I'm going to step out so you can do what you need to do up in here so that we can talk to the people. But please know, D-Lo, at the time that we're finished here, he will be removing this equipment and it will go back to Rachel's retreat. Hallelujah.
Well, look, number 3 in the 3 tips that we have to nurture your relationship during this crisis.
Willie said something here. I'm sorry. Go ahead, baby. I just realized I was
trampling on my love language again.
Wow.
The third one is execute the plan. Execute the plan. You know, so when you all develop this plan to prioritize your relationship and being intentional, displaying the love languages, and then establishing practices for the future, here's what we tend to do as humans.
What's that?
Anything can throw us off track. We lose that sense of discipline. We're not, like, soon as this thing is over, well, we ain't in the house no more. So you find a million things to do, and now you just forgot your spouse again. So what we're saying is, once you all have developed those plans in step 2, And step 3, number 1, execute the plan.
Yes.
Keep that plan going. Do not try to alter the plan, not because the plan is not working, but because you found something better to do in your mind.
Because that's
or you allow life
right
to take control of you instead of you controlling your life.
That's the secret about these steps is they work in a crisis and can keep you from a crisis.
Right.
Within your relationship. And he is exactly right. Execute the plan, even after the fact, keep it going. But while you are yet in it, okay, there are things, like he said, can derail the plan. A, conflict. Because you're in each other's face, because you're constantly in this space, there's going to be conflict that's going to arise. There are going to be things that are going to make you say, I don't want to do this no more. I'm so tired of this. When are we going to get out of it? We don't know how long we're going to be in this situation.
Right.
But what we do know, it's much longer than anybody wants to be.
Right.
And what I mentioned earlier is this really is a challenge for those of us who like to be in control. Now I'm talking to people, whether you're in a relationship or you're not in a relationship, that whole control piece is huge. So if this situation literally has you just in a stir on the inside, I can't stress it enough. And Jimmy said it earlier, it's time for some self-analysis. Because nothing, however you choose to find your peace, and I want to say in a healthy way, because sometimes people are at peace doing some things that can reap some other things.
Right.
That's a whole nother show for another day. But whatever it is that you need to do to figure out, why am I at such an unrest? We're not saying that there's not reason for, to be cautious, because there is. We got some people out there who do have compromised immune systems. We do have some people out there who have elderly parents and they're taking care of them. So I'm not saying don't be concerned and don't be cautious, but if this thing literally is uprooting your peace, it's unhealthy for you.
Right.
Because it's sending cortisol through your blood, which can cause you to have heart disease, clog your arteries. It's causing you to constantly be in a state of panic, fight or flight, or freeze. And that's unhealthy for anyone. And so executing that plan, and the first thing we have under executing that plan is being consistent
in implementing
that plan. Willie said, yep, that's true. Execute the plan. The devil is the one who diverts us from that purpose.
That's right. Anything that's good for us, you gotta know that there's going to be an opposing energy fighting against it.
That's right.
So if you want to foster something healthy, you have to plant healthy seeds.
That's right.
And when you plant the healthy seeds, you have to, as a farmer, and I like to say we're farmers, right? Humanity, we're farmers. So whatever energy we're putting out is the energy that we're going to get in return. So they say what you reap or what you sow, you will reap.
Right.
Well, that principle is saying whatever energy you're putting out there is what you're going to get in return. If I'm planting healthy seeds to foster our relationship,
boom.
Now, once the seed is planted, my work isn't done.
That's right.
So, because here's what's going to happen to that seed. There are going to be times when birds going to try to pick it up. There are going to be times where weeds going to grow up around it. So I have to keep the weeds.
Pull the weeds out.
I have to pull the weeds so they won't choke the seed.
Those are the priorities that get in the way.
Right.
The unrealistic expectations.
That's your job. That's your career. All of those things that are weeds in our lives, the things that we start to put in priority over our relationship, they put an unnecessary strain that we brought on ourselves. Listen, I challenge people with this a lot. You are the most expendable person at your place of employment. I don't care what your job is. Those companies do not care about you. And once they let you go, just like during this little thing, do you know a lot of companies laid people off so they wouldn't have to pay them?
That's right.
Because the government, they got wind that the government was going to mandate that people not go to work. Companies started firing people.
Yes.
That's low down. So now not only are you at home in this crisis, you trying to figure out how you're going to pay your bills.
That's right.
But those are the same people, I guarantee you, on some level, was putting their job before their spouse.
That's right. And let me just say this. I'm going to put a disclaimer on when he said, your job is your weeds. It's not a weed. Weeds choke out.
No.
But let me clarify. Weeds choke out healthy plants and the right kind of grass that you want to grow, right? But a job doesn't have to choke out if it's put in the right place in your priorities. You follow what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, you're exactly right. We're all dispensable. But putting things in the right pecking order, God, your higher power, your relationship, if you're not in a relationship with another individual, your relationships with your family, then your work, because we can't just put this out there as if people don't get fulfillment from their jobs and they don't have amazing jobs that are helping a lot of people. But I think the context of what you're saying is don't put the job ahead of the relationships in your life, because that's when it can choke it out. But it has its perspective place. It's in the garden, but you can't. It can start to turn into a weed if you're not tending to the flowers that are going to bear fruit, or the plants that are going to bear fruit. And I think that's what's important. And let's say this, since you're giving the whole thing about plants. Let's say it does. You have your seeds, and they do start to sprout. The seeds are going to sprout, but guess what? It will all die if you don't continue to water it.
That's right.
If you don't get rid of the dead leaves. Dead leaves. Guys, please post for me, what are the dead leaves in our lives? Lily, I see you watching. Bruce Smith. Guys, as you guys join in, don't forget to put the city that you're watching us from. We want to see. We got somebody that's watching us from Nigeria. We got somebody from Arkansas. Of course, we've seen Huntsville in the house.
Louisiana.
Let's see Louisiana. Let's see how many Huntsville people we have. But just tell us, what are some of those dead leaves that need to be cut off?
Right. That's
literally keeping that plant from flourishing. And when we say that plant,
we're talking about your relationship.
We're talking about your relationship. Mm-hmm. And many times, just like it's foolish, and Stephanie, my girl Stephanie, who has a wonderful green thumb and beautiful garden, we all know that if you try to have a garden and you're just letting the plant, the weeds grow, and if you don't pull that one, guess what? Those weeds don't die. They multiply. Y'all remember that from back in the day? Mm-hmm. What's up, JD? JD is watching us.
And yes. Papa Davis.
Yes. Those weeds don't die. They multiply. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, the crisis is over. COVID-19 has been handled. And you go back to your garden.
And the marriage is still in a shambles.
The plants have died, y'all. Right. Ain't no fruit. Ain't no leaves. Well, not no live, viable leaves that you can get nourishment from. Mm-hmm. We really, and here's why I am so passionate about relationships. Yeah, about relationships and what's going on. Because literally, to me, when you're in a relationship with your spouse, it is that thing. It is that connection, that bond that the enemy wants to destroy at any cost, because he knows together, what was that from Soul Food? Together we strike a mighty blow. Right. He knows that together we're going to build up the kingdom of God. Together lives are going to be saved. Together people are going to be set free. Together relationships are going to continue to thrive. And he wants to send a message of, well, it's been like this. We're okay with surviving. And to me, that's the worst.
Right.
People say the opposite of love is hate. The opposite of love is indifference. Mm-hmm. When you get to the point where you like, I can take it or leave it. I'm not even fazed anymore. If you're at the point where you're like, oh, I cannot stand him, I hate him, there's still emotion involved. Mm-hmm. There's still an opportunity to take that hurt and change it into love, that hate, and turn it into love. Right. But once you get to the point where you're complacent and you're just coasting, it is a scary thing, because the weeds are growing.
And you're not realizing it.
And you don't realize it till it's too late, and then there's a famine in the land. There's a famine in the land.
Yeah. So again, we're talking about the three tips: keeping calm, developing a plan, execute the plan. So in executing the plan, we're talking about please, be consistent. Be consistent with the plan. Don't let the plan die once this crisis is over. And then we're talking about being disciplined. Being disciplined simply says that when life happens, you're still going to hold on to the plan. You're still going to be, you're still going to implement those things that you develop during this time of crisis. You're still going to make time to spend with your significant other.
That's right.
You're going to learn, hopefully during this period, implementing these three tips, that nothing else should be more important than your spouse, right?
Or your significant other.
Your significant other.
Yes.
And then last is going to be revisit the plan when necessary.
That's
now,
right.
Why are we revisiting this plan? We're revisiting the plan for one of two reasons. We're revisiting the plan because we noticed that what we came up with is not working. Not only not for one party, but for both, right? So now you all can sit back at the table and say, hey, we actually gave this a shot.
Right.
We were consistent, we were disciplined, and we're not getting the benefit that we thought we were going to get.
That's right.
So now you two can come together and say, hey, let's
see how we can tweak this. Let's see how we can edit.
Right.
Or
the second reason, the second reason is for accountability. You come back to the table and be like, look, I thought we said we were going to do A, B, C, and D. I'm noticing that we're slipping back into the old mode. You know what I'm saying?
Let's go back to our first works.
Right.
And that's why, guys, when you're in a relationship, you're not always going to agree on everything. Those of you who tuned in last week, if y'all didn't get to see last week, it was on conflict resolution. What was the topic there? I'm saying something, but are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Yes, it was communication.
Right.
Yes, and compliance, and ultimately making a connection. But I almost lost my train of thought. What was it that you just said, baby?
We were talking about revisiting the plan to make sure that we're holding each other accountable.
Right.
That we're, hey, I thought we said we were going to do this, but now we're slipping back into that old mode.
And coming back to, that's what I was going to say, coming back to that thing that you both agreed upon, it has to be there, because when you're in conflict, everybody's holding to themselves. Like, y'all, let me just tell y'all right now. We just have to be transparent. There are times that my husband and I have had arguments where we are literally both holding on to our side. And if this ship going down, we going down with it. You jumping on that side and I'm jumping on this side. But at the end of the day, how does that help the relationship?
Right.
If we both truly, like, at the end of the day, and I always tell him this, because sometimes he get in his feelings. I said, babe, at the end of the day, I have no ill will towards you. And I don't use that as an excuse to be able to just like, I think I can treat him any kind of way I want. That's not what that means. But sometimes I might do some things, say some things. Sometimes I didn't even know I was saying something that could have hurt your feelings. But the way it came across to you, I can't manipulate how you felt about it. That's how you felt about it. But it's not always intentional. Mm-hmm. But when you have something that you both have agreed upon, of, you know what, this is what's important to me. Mm-hmm. This is what's important to us. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you need those checks and balances to bring you back to your right state of mind. Because when we go left, we go really left.
Right.
I want to address something that Willie said. Please give me a clear understanding, Willie of Sandy Springs, clear understanding of what you mean that people wanting to go to work to get away from their spouse just get a divorce. Now, here's the thing. It's easy to say that. And we live in a cancel culture. Ain't that right? We live in a cancel culture where things get tough, I'm out of here. Have we ever thought that, and I'm talking about relationships where, the two are walking together and it didn't start off in a situation that should have never been. I'm right. Talking about truly you two on the same page, you both have those same core values, and this is the person you truly want to spend the rest of your life with, right? What happens is, just because it gets tough, it doesn't mean it's time to abandon it. Right. Maybe there are some character flaws in both of you that need to be ironed out, that need to be crushed, that need to be thrown away,
right,
and replaced with something that is more productive.
And let me tell you what those things look like.
Go ahead and tell us, baby.
This is what those look like. I want somebody to love me for me. Do you really realize what you're saying? If there's some things about you that need to change, no, you shouldn't want somebody to love you for you. You know what I'm saying? What you would want is somebody that is willing to grow with you.
Well, they're going to love you with your flaws, but not accept them as if it's okay.
Listen. God, don't nobody love us more than God.
I agree.
And you name me one moment in your life where he ain't trying to change you.
I agree.
He is always trying to get us to a better place. God himself, he our creator. And when he see dysfunctional stuff in us, he's constantly trying to work on those things so we can grow beyond or grow out of those bad habits.
But we
tend to, as human beings, we want people to dismiss those damaging characteristics that we have in our lives that has caused nothing but hell in our lives. We want them to still love me. Ain't nobody gonna talk.
But here's the thing. There was a comment you made, and I don't know if you meant it this way. God doesn't change us. He's not seeking. He wants us to change.
Well, he's always seeking.
Right. He doesn't control our will. But I do believe when you want to live a life that is pleasing to God, you know, you want to have somebody in your life that holds you accountable,
right? That
supports your growth. People, I probably say this almost every time we have a live. I truly believe that this marital relationship is salvific. All right. I do believe that I can mess around and bust hell wide open because of the things that I chose to hold on to and anchor down to. That could be a character flaw, period. It just happens to manifest itself because I'm in this close, bonded, committed relationship that has been sanctified by the Holy One. That could be what exposed it.
Right.
But be very careful in thinking, oh, this hurts. Oh, this is uncomfortable. Oh, I don't like the way this. I'm not talking about in cases of abuse and addiction and things of that nature. I'm talking about just the times that thing that keeps coming up. It may not just come up from that person.
Right.
You may have heard it from other people. But iron has to sharpen iron.
Right.
And that's why sometimes, like with us, people look at us sometimes and they're like, gosh, you guys look like you have so much fun. And y'all look like y'all been married for so many years. We've been married, June will make 8 years, but we've been married before. So we do come with a lot of marital experience and have learned some lessons. But as passionate as we are about great things and positive things, we're just as passionate about the things that we feel is right.
Right.
And sometimes, you know, you just got to wave the white flag. Sometimes with this one here, I just say, well, baby, I respect what you're saying, but I just don't agree. And if that thing that I don't agree with is based on a preference and not a principle, because if it's a principle, our core values, those things that we both agreed upon, that's a whole different ball game. Because now it's like, wait a minute. We really need to have a come to Jesus moment or come to whatever moment, because this is something that we both agreed upon and we valued.
Right. I see another comment here. Rosalind Bird says, what about those who may think they don't have a particular flaw that others see in them? Ooh. How would you approach this?
Let me tell you.
Well, you know, here's what I'm learning. It is not our responsibility to fix anyone. The best we can offer is to hold the mirror up in front of them.
Mercy. And what's that mirror look like?
Well, the mirror looks like accountability. You can't say you didn't do what you did and everybody saw you do it. You know what I'm saying? That's the mirror. You know what I mean? And too often, and I've used this analogy before, too often we abuse the mirror. Like, how many of us actually get dressed, put on the outfit of our choice, we go stand in front of that mirror, we look at it and we see something wrong with it. Do we just simply go back to the closet and change, or do we get into a argument with what we see?
Have mercy.
Mirror, that's wrong. I'm gonna wear this. This ain't tight. I don't like. We don't do that. We just turn our heads, go back in the closet and change, right? But in the context of relationships, guess what our spouse is? They're our proverbial mirror. They see what we have managed to hide from the public. They hear what everybody else don't hear. So when they speak to it, we don't have the luxury of saying, no, you ain't right. Yeah, they are right.
And here's the thing, you mentioned this earlier. In relationships, and we all suffer with this, we have to be mature. And maturity means sometimes you really have to sit down and say, I was wrong. You know, last week I said, I feel like I'm always, for the most part, when we have a discussion, disagreement, I'm right. And, you know, I said that.
Oh.
And to some extent, I mean it. But at the same time,
you mean it wholeheartedly.
Realistically, I know that's impossible. It's impossible for, in a relationship, one person to always be right. And Rosalind, to just address what you're saying, even in dealing with that person, it's counterintuitive to even think that somebody is not capable of being wrong or having flaws. We are flawed individuals. We're sinful individuals. We do things wrong all the time, but I think it's how we handle it. And I'm glad I'm saying this because it's bringing me back to what I was going to say. People, and if I have any single people listening, I really want you to hear this as well. It is so important for us as we think about that ideal relationship that we want. Mm-hmm. And I think we all have at some point. What has got to change is the perspective that marriage is a fairy tale.
Right.
Because last I checked, fairy tales are fake.
Yep. Yep.
Boom. Fairy tales are fake. And so we all know this. If you go into a situation with the wrong perspective, will you not come out disappointed?
Right.
Case in point, movies come out all the time, especially the big, budget movies that everybody's looking forward to, and people hype it up. People, oh, did you see this movie? Oh, it was so good. You don't even want to look on Facebook because people are commenting, and then you go to see it, and you was like,
I could have waited for that.
I could have waited for that. That wasn't even that bad. But had no one said a word, you probably would have enjoyed it more than you actually did. And I feel the same way about marriage. Mm-hmm. I feel like if you go into it realistically, and I'm not saying, people, that you can't have fun in a marriage, you can't have joy, you cannot have happiness. But what I am saying is anything worth having is worth working for.
Yep.
And I think, unfortunately, we get into marriages and we just kind of think, now, well, I got him now. Whether the guy is thinking that or the girl is thinking that, the woman is thinking that, because now I get to have my husband, my beautiful car, my house, my picket fence, my 2 kids and a dog.
Right.
And it's so much more than that, because I think we've seen enough examples in this world to know that that's not enough.
Exactly.
What matters the most is your character.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you on the inside? And is it being refined? And what are you doing with your character to help others, to build up your marriage, your relationship, and ultimately people who come near you?
Right. So look, we have some new people that joined. Twyla Blossom, Courtney Troy. What's up, Scott? Oh, and my girl Tansy. Tansy,
yes.
I know that Rachel in our relationship is the one that thinks she's always right, but we know who always thinks they're right in your relationship.
What?
You admitted it.
Oh, wait. I just realized you were throwing shade on Tansy.
No, I wasn't throwing shade on Tansy. I'm talking
about throwing shade on
her.
Ooh. you know there's going to be a video come back to that.
I know it.
Tansy, he can't help himself. But listen, guys, we got some people making comments. Guys, don't forget to put in your comments what city, you're repping from. We got to hear you guys. We're social distancing, but we feel so connected to y'all when you tell us, when you give your inputs. Willie, you get an A, Willie. You have been interacting with us. We feel like you're in the room right here with us. Kia, that's my girl. Kay from Huntsville. She lives here now. She said, hi, Louise May. Love y'all, that's Rachel Kia and Jimmy. Vaughn. Yeah, Kia Von Floyd. She used to work with me. Someone needs to hear this. Thank y'all. Let me tell you something. We all need to hear it.
Amen.
Because when I tell you how deep this thing is, Jimmy and I had a wonderful day yesterday. Mm-hmm. From the beginning of the day to the end of the day. And late in the midnight hour, the enemy tried to throw dissension between us. Because he knew, yes, he did.
When?
He want me to put it out there. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. Y'all, if y'all haven't seen The Banker, it's an excellent movie. So yesterday, after all our activities and the whole riding bikes and stuff, Jimmy was tired. He wanted to go to sleep, and it was 9:30. I was physically tired, but it was 10 by the time I left the room. But I remember looking at the clock when you went into the room, baby. And I went in there. He had promised me a massage. He tried to shade me on that too. He was like, I'll get you tomorrow. I'm like, hold up now. Did you ask me if it was okay? Because that's what consideration looks like, because that's my love language. Boom, you got to keep them honest. And so he was like, okay, my bad. That's what we talk about. And I appreciate that. When we talk about the things that you agreed upon, your core values, and the love languages and respecting one another, had he dismissed me at that moment and said, I'm too tired to give you a massage, why do I have to ask you? I would have had a problem with that, because you promised the massage, and now you're acting like you never promised it, or I'll do it tomorrow. Did you first ask if it was okay? But he took it back and said, okay, baby, I can get you tonight if you want it tonight. I said, sure. So I got the massage. He took his little tail to bed. That's his prerogative. I wanted to watch this movie, The Banker, because my boy from work, James Brooks, said it was an excellent movie. The movie was a 2-hour movie. And so I think I had watched something before that, but by the time I went into the room, he was like, babe, what you doing? I said, I'm watching a movie. He was like, okay. I could tell when he said that he probably wanted me in the room. So I said to him, well, babe, I can watch it in here. He's like, no, that's all right. Because I guess he didn't want to be disturbed by it. So then I come into my retreat, minding my own business with all this estrogen, no testosterone. And he comes in at 2:00 in the morning asking me, what you still doing here? That movie is still on? Yes, it is. I said, what's the problem? He said, I'm just wondering why you ain't in the bed next to me. I ain't in the bed next to you, baby, because I told you I was watching this movie.
I ain't never seen a 2-hour movie take that long.
Is that a problem? After I was considerate, he said he wanted to go to bed. Baby, you can go to bed. He came, I went in the room. He asked me what I was doing. I told him. He said, I said, I can come in here. And so that kind of, when he was like trying to check me on that was raising something in my spirit. And I said, we had a wonderful day today, or at this point, yesterday. I'm not going to let the enemy take over. And so I went back to the room and we had a nice little short parlay about it and went to bed. But here we are today. We had to push through that, because although it seems like it's little, these little things can become big. Okay. And so we had to push through that because we knew he had a message.
Right.
We knew we had to come in and share some stuff with y'all.
What Willie said, man, I feel that. Appreciate you,
What
Willie.
you feeling?
Don't no 2-hour movie take the 2:00 to be over, Willie. I'm just all I'm saying, Junior. No, seriously. No, guys, honestly, because we're about to wrap this up. We don't want to keep you guys any longer than we have to. But again, we just want to refresh your memory on why we were meeting today. We wanted to give you guys some tools and some tips for those of you who are in a relationship, and we're all dealing with this thing of being locked in. Right. So we wanted to give you all 3 tips to nurture your relationship during a crisis. Nurturing your relationship, and let's just add, because I see many people on here who may or may not be in a relationship. These tips are good regardless of if you are in a relationship or not, but we wanted to gear it towards, of course, being in that couple relationship. Well, look, I just saw a message from Kia. Kia said, I get the same thing over here with my hubby. So Kia, let me go and tell you what's happening. You're wrong. Go in that room with your husband and chill. Pause. Here's Kia. Let me tell y'all the truth. The truth. Go. The truth is part of the reason why I took issue. Because she didn't meet my other love language. Pause. Part of the reason why I took issue with it was number one, why are you trying to regulate when I'm going to bed? Because you didn't meet my other love language. Number 2, which is really number 1, there have been quite a few times that my husband was not ready to go to sleep, and I got in the bed, and just as I'm getting in the bed, he got the lights on, this and that, and he ends up going upstairs for hours. Because you didn't meet my love language. Baby, we had already had the discussion. No. Yes, we did. We had the discussion, and we made an agreement.
And it wasn't time yet. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. But y'all, let me tell y'all something. Did we not tell y'all that we're for real? Like, this is called relationship real talk. All that little, butterflies and kisses and all that, that's great. Like if Jill, I don't know if you still on that honeymoon period. I love it. Y'all together and everything's great. You love one another and you will continue to do so.
Yes.
However, there are times where this kind of stuff takes place and it's a constant battle, tug of war of denying yourself, taking one for the team,
right?
Conceding. Is this best for the relationship or is this best for me? And at the end of the day, we both fall short. We all fall short at any given time.
Yeah, that's true. And,
yes, Rachel, the single people.
Who said that?
Rosalind. Single people out here in these streets. Because guess what? The single people at any given time could be in a relationship. So we want to talk to them.
And listen, and now that you're single, and I'm gonna say
yes,
this,
Kia.
Now that you're single, you have the opportunity to actually work on those things that you know for sure you're deficient in. You have those areas of growth because we all have them, and it's no better time than when you're single to iron those things out. So once you get in a relationship, that's one less issue that has to be dealt with during the context of the relationship. Too many of us don't want to address us while we are only dealing with us. And when we get in relationships, I just want somebody to love me for me. You crazy sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes you feel like you don't want to mess it up.
Right.
And it won't mess it up. And guess what? If it's meant to be, it will be. But you can't just be afraid and tiptoe during that dating or courting period. And then when you get married, think it's going to be better. But I do want to quote Willie.
Uh-oh. What'd he say?
It sounds like a wonderful ending quote. Look, when two hearts are connected and when two become used to being close to each other, it feels different when you're away too long, even in the next room. Well, guess what, Willie? We spent a whole day together.
Hey.
This was the one time.
You're supposed to close on the nice quote.
This is the first time we were apart. See, that's what's wrong with some of these guys.
Junior, that was poetic, brother.
Wait. Sometimes they get a little bit, they want more. Then they get greedy.
I ain't getting none.
Listen, hold on. That's a whole nother conversation. Insatiable appetites in the name of Jesus.
Hey, Willie, that was a quote. I'm going to add that to my repertoire. When she asked me, baby, is it a problem? I'm like, yes, baby. I'm so in love with you. Sometimes it's just hard for me to be away from you.
Well, you make sure when the tables are turned, it's the same.
Well, if you say that to me, I'm going to know, I might feel some type of way about that one.
Listen, y'all, I done had some fun up in here today. Bump COVID.
Yeah.
We're going to get through it. And I will say this, and Willie kind of hit on it. You really have to find your peace. Because honestly, to me, the person that you can be in the worst of situations, those of you who are really working on yourself, you never truly know if you're ready for that challenge, for that mountain
until you meet it.
That's it. If you're never challenged by it, then you're really living in a false sense of reality.
Yep.
So these are the times that try men's souls. So the thing I want to leave with you guys is, do you feel as if now that this test has come, are you ready for the test? And if you're not ready for the test, what are you going to do
to prepare yourself
to prepare yourself while you are yet in it, and perhaps the next one that's coming? Because there's going to be another one that's coming.
Right.
It may not be in the face of COVID-19. It could be something totally different. But when I tell you, once you start trying to do right, the enemy will try to shake you at your very core, at your foundation. But I always think about Job. Oh my goodness. That man, it was like, as I read that story, I always think, really, God? You going to continue to let the devil mess with him? He lost his cattle. He lost his children. He lost his wife.
No, he didn't lose his wife.
I thought he lost his wife and got a new one.
No, she was still there agitating. She was the one that said, won't you go on and curse God?
She did. But all I'm saying is, most of us, have we lost, that cattle is their work.
Right.
Have we lost our job and we lost all our children? Come on now.
And then your friends
looking
at you
crazy.
What'd you do?
You be out in these streets butt naked crazy.
Yeah.
But that's for another day.
Doing the Martin Lawrence, you know what I'm saying? But guys, look, we do appreciate you all for joining us, and we're not going to take too much more of your time.
Thank you so much, guys. I said, God bless you. Great show. Thanks, you guys were awesome.
Yeah.
We enjoy the best shows.
She just cut off me again.
Oh, when you guys participate. I'm sorry.
No,
Go
you
ahead.
Sorry.
We got to be close. Well, it's social distancing, but you know.
But look, guys, thank you all again for joining us on Relationship Real Talk. And until next week, peace.
Holla.
You're so goofy.